Hey everybody, good afternoon. It is Jillian McMullen here. If you're not familiar with me and what I'm about, I am a blogger at jillianmcmullen.com, and I primarily talk about healthy eating and weight loss, and I'm a dietitian, and I'm also an entrepreneur. So what I'm going to talk about today is something that I've been researching really for my next blog post, and if all goes well, that will be up tomorrow, and trying to figure out what this whole thing is about high fructose corn syrup. It's really one of the more controversial topics in the health world, just kind of like coconut oil is right now, but this one has really been controversial for quite some time. And is it something we should avoid? Is it something we even can avoid? Is it something that we're just making a big deal out of nothing? And I will tell you that admittedly, I'm still a little bit confused, and doing a pretty extensive literature review. I think that the jury's still out, but I'll let you know what I found, and hopefully clear some of it up for you. So when I talk about high fructose corn syrup, I am guessing that probably in your mind you're thinking bad, it's the reason why the obesity epidemic is the way that it is. It's the cause of inflammation, which leads to things like heart disease and joint health and aches and pains in my body. Even fibromyalgia. It causes just all kinds of issues, hyperlipidemia, diabetes, all of this stuff that we are seeing at growing rates faster than anything we've ever seen in the U.S. history. So when high fructose corn syrup first started getting introduced to the market was around the late 1960s, early 1970s. And what the food companies found was that it's really easy to manufacture. It's very stable because it's derived from cornstarch, which is corn, and corn is a very stable crop. It's always being produced. There's never really a problem with corn, and they can always count on corn to grow, and therefore the price never fluctuates, and therefore it's very cheap. It's also in a liquid form, so it's really easy for them to make it and also put it in a variety of products. So all they really have to do is just change the dilution of it, and they can the possibilities are endless on what they can do with it. There's two different kinds of high fructose corn syrup. One is 42% fructose, and then the rest is glucose, and the other one is 55% fructose, and the rest is glucose. So their argument is that it's very similar to sucrose, which is just table sugar. Sucrose is a 50-50 mix of fructose and glucose. So it is very similar to table sugar. And all of the arguments of why high fructose corn syrup is fine is because it is really no different than using table sugar, except it's a food manufacturing company's dream that it's cheaper and easier to use. Makes a lot of sense. Now, the thing that I've kind of deducted so far from all of the studies is that it's not that the high fructose corn syrup itself is so bad, it's that it's become so easy to use that it's in all of our products. I think, I'm not, don't quote me on this, but I want to say that corn is in about 78% of the food, processed food that we eat, and most of that is high fructose corn syrup. It's not always been that way, but because of that, that means that we're eating a lot more processed food and therefore a lot more sugary food. So it's really high fructose corn syrup's fault that we're having this influx of processed food, which in turn we have a growing rate of obesity, which leads to heart disease and diabetes and all of the other things that we see tied to eating processed foods. So the thing that kind of holds me back from saying that eating processed food or eating high fructose corn syrup isn't worse and it's the same as eating table sugar, although I don't think that eating table sugar is good for you either. I wrote a blog post, which I will link the source so you can check that out if you missed it, on cutting out sugar in general and all sweets and processed food, and what that did for just a really it wasn't a study, it was just a very informal observation of what happened when we cut it out for 30 days. But I'm sure there's studies out there of what happens when you cut out sugar and table sugar of all kinds. But just in general, if you cut out sugar, added sugars, and that includes high fructose corn syrup, that includes table sugar, that includes all of the added sugars, then it does make a really big difference in your health, your energy levels, because you're eating more whole foods. If you eat whole foods like fresh fruits and vegetables and meat, then you're not going to get any of the added sugars at all. But the difference is that the average American, they basically on average, we're eating close to 38 pounds of high fructose corn syrup. That's a lot. It's in everything we eat, and it's very difficult to avoid because even in things that are not sweet, it's there. It's there, it's prevalent, because it adds a little bit of flavor and shelf stability. So it's also a preservative, a food additive that helps just keep your food stable. So the thing that holds me back is the review articles that concluded that high fructose corn syrup is natural because it's made of two natural substances, although that's kind of like saying trans fat is natural, because trans fat is man-made, and so is high fructose corn syrup. So you really can't. I don't agree with that statement at all. But they say it's natural, and the review articles that I found that say that it is perfectly the same, they all do agree that you should not eat a bunch of it. They're not saying that eating a bunch of high fructose corn syrup is fine or good for you even. They're not saying that. They're just saying that it's not any different than if these products were made with table sugar. So that's not what they want you to think. But they are saying it's not doing anything. It's not doing any different than if the sodas were made with sugar or the cookies were made with sugar, and that's why everything is still made with high fructose corn syrup. But these review studies were funded and backed by Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Conagra Foods, which makes one of the largest processed food companies. So is Kraft, also funded it. And there's one more I'm missing, which will come to me in a second, but it was another really big, I think it was Pepperidge Farm, that funded these studies. And then also the biggest one, the Corn Refiners Association. They have a lot to lose if studies come out and say that, yeah, high fructose corn syrup does speed up obesity, it does speed up hyperlipidemia, it does speed up diabetes rates. So if I just can't take these studies with a lot of seriousness and believe that they're telling us the whole truth when companies are backing these review articles and saying that it's completely fine and that it's not better to make it with table sugar versus what they wouldn't exist. They wouldn't exist, and they would have to spend a lot more money to make their products if they stopped using high fructose corn syrup. So it's just really, all of the major health organizations say it's fine, but I have to wonder. I have to wonder what we don't know, maybe what's not allowed to be studied, maybe what hasn't been studied because big government agencies are shutting it down, maybe what's been found out and we just don't know. So that's a hard call. So the really kind of the underlying message for all of it was to eat it in moderation, but the question is, what does moderation mean? And and that's kind of another big thing. None of the studies really said how much is okay to eat, because it really limits you to a lot of foods if you try to cut it out of your diet. You could look in your pantry now and see how many of your foods have high fructose corn syrup. You'll be surprised. It'll be things like your crackers. Triscuits is a brand that I really like, and I haven't looked at the label, but I'm pretty sure it's probably got high fructose corn syrup. I'd be surprised if it didn't. Even your whole wheat breads, absolutely all of these products are going to have it because that's just what they use. It's just as common as sodium, added sodium. So take a look at that and let me know. Let me know what kind of products you were surprised to see has high fructose corn syrup added. So I'm going to do a little bit more research and digging and look for that blog post, hopefully by tomorrow, but if not, in the next couple of days. And hopefully I'll have some more information for you and be able to clarify a little bit more. But so far, this is what I know. So have a good afternoon. Thanks for listening. And as always, thank you for the replay viewers. And I will talk to you tomorrow. Also, don't forget, I have my Facebook group going. That is a group where we did our 30-day challenge of no sugar. And if you want to do that, we will certainly support you. So just click the link in my bio or my wallpaper, and that's how you get in. Talk to you next time.